The concept of a minimal viable product is an important and valuable concept academically and in theory. When done right, it helps to bridge the gap between a startup's concept and the product that's actually going to be delivered in the marketplace. If implemented correctly, it can help facilitate more successful startups with less expense. The problem is taking the concept and implementing it effectively, practically, outside of Silicon Valley and academic circumstances. The key is to work the concept around what will be a minimal product that's actually viable by an average target customer. It's not about them saying, I can see and use the product. It's about getting the minimum iteration of the product such that the user will say, nice, I like it. I can use it and it solves my problem. I'd buy this. It turns out that most technical-oriented teams don't get this last part right. They focus on what is technically viable and usable. What you really want to do is get the product that you build at this stage into a minimal viable product that users actually love. Love being the operative word. So let's call it what it really is, minimal lovable product, or MLP. Just to make this really clear, an MVP, minimal viable product, is developed to iterate on a product before spending a lot of time and money on the early release. In practice, it might be usable by a customer because technically it does something so important the customer will bend expectations to use it. It's a feature-focused development. An MLP, minimal lovable product, is designed to deliver a product that may or may not have a lot of features, but directly addresses the fundamental needs of a user to solve the defined problem they have in a simple way that makes them say, yep, I love it. That's what I was thinking about. I'll start with this one, and I can't wait to see the finalized product. That's a minimal lovable product. The key here is that we need to differentiate between what people say, yes, that would be nice to have, versus people, that's kind of like an aspiration. Rather, this is something I think I could become comfortable with, and people think, oh, well, it's all right, versus something they actually love. Give that to me. I've been waiting for that for a long time. I'll take it right now. The key takeaway here is to remember we're trying to offset a really important statistic. 70% of products developed by great teams with great inventions that surveys indicate people would like and want don't fly. You want to bridge that gap in the fastest, cheapest manner by building an MLP. You want to know if people will buy your product at the level you project. That requires that customers see even the most basic version of your product and see if they say, I love it. To be clear, at the MLP stage, it's about not saying, I love the product, but I love the solution. I love the solution it delivers in its simplest form. If it's that important that a customer says, I love it, and I want to have it even in its raw form, you've got a winner. Do you remember when the iPhone first came out? The first iPhone, if you may remember, had almost no features. You couldn't even select text. You couldn't move the cursor to where you wanted it to go. You couldn't copy-paste. It had no apps. And it didn't even work on the system that was modern at the time called 3G cellular. It was incredibly basic. But people loved it. It was a minimal, lovable product in its quintessential form. Apple needed to test if people desired that cool touch-enabled phone. That was really important to them. Their biggest competitor, Microsoft, literally laughed at the concept because it was twice as expensive as Microsoft's phone at that time, and it had 1/10 of the features and capabilities. Apple really didn't know if Steve Jobs' vision that the cool factor would be enough for people to buy it at a real volume. But they went out with the product to see, and it took off like wildfire. Despite the fact there were no apps, they couldn't hardly use it on anything else, but it was a great minimal lovable product. So let's begin by thinking about the fundamental concept and background around MVP. The first thing to consider is why this is the important prospect in the development of a startup, particularly in developing markets. Remember, It begins with the idea of building a prototype that solves a clear problem and has real market interest and viability. The MVP concept, as originally intended, was to be a product that you could get out into the marketplace quickly, cheaply, and with minimum effort, and get feedback from live customers before getting deep into a product development. It preempts creating that feature-rich product that no customer particularly finds relevant or willing to pay for. At the same time, it doesn't really tell you all that the product solution provides and whether it's loved by a user. Based on the Silicon Valley concept of learn quickly by failing fast, the idea is that even if you think about having a great concept or idea and all your friends agree that it's a great idea, survey says people want to buy it, the reality and the marketplace often are different once you really introduce and try a product to selling it in the market. The only way to know if a product is going to be usable, meets the conceptual vision in a customer's mind, is to get it out into their hands, into the marketplace, quickly, and have the customer try it. The only way to know if that product is desired is to get a minimal, lovable product into the marketplace. Once you have the basic features on something a potential customer can use, ask this: what 3 things would this product have to do that would make it something you would buy now, even in its rudimentary form? How much would you pay for it now that you see it? How much would you pay if it had all of those 3 features you said, or was completely feature-rich? This is the time to understand these answers. This process will help a very common issue in startups called founder's syndrome. This primarily happens, obviously, with tech-driven companies. Tech teams want to build a product that they love and enjoy and are excited about. In the venture capital world, we have often seen tech startup companies coming to us with a product full of dozens or even hundreds of features, much before it's actually been tested in the marketplace. The tech team marvels at their own engineering, their achievements, and touts all of the capabilities of the product. What is missing is that this engineering mindset may not exist at all in the customer. As a customer-centric viewpoint, you have to understand this. First, who is the customer? Well, is it a bunch of tech people? If you're selling a software management system to a bunch of engineers just like you, then you're on the right track. If not, stop and listen carefully. If your customer is not an engineer, just like you, ask yourself this critical question when your engineering team jumps in to build features upon features in your product. Does the customer find these features relevant to solving their core problem? Customers will understand, appreciate, and desire and pay for simple solutions that are easy to use. They're looking for simple solutions to a problem that they can feel strongly about and they're willing to pay for. A minimal lovable product, like a minimal viable product, follows the build, measure, learn, and iterate. Rinse and repeat, right? Go through that process to get to the right solution. Every time you build an MLP, it needs to be tested with real-life customers to get feedback and learn from that test if it works or not. The process makes sure that the product is aligned with the customer's needs, and it reduces waste and builds the product that's the right product initially to get to market. It also helps you change course quickly from your original vision of the final product once you realize that the customer's needs are actually different than you had originally anticipated. If it doesn't meet the right value equation, it's important to know now. With a quick iteration process, you can quickly turn and shift focus, product, features, or even who your customer might be. This turnaround is called a pivot. One interesting example of such a pivot is Pinterest. This incredibly popular pinning social network didn't start off at all in that form. It pivoted from Tote, which was allowing people to browse and shop their favorite retailers, sending them updates when the favorite items were on the sale. The founders quickly learned through that iterative process that the users of Tote were most interested in building collections of their favorite items and sharing those collections with friends. It listened carefully to the customer, iterated, and shifted its focus from what they had in mind to what their customer had in mind. They took out a bunch of stuff to make the product lovable, and it took off. Since it's been repositioned, Pinterest has over 70 million viewers. A minimal lovable product, and MLP takes that concept one very important step forward. Building just a functional product in an MVP will solve the customer's problem technically, but it doesn't ensure that a customer is going to love that product, emotionally connect to it, and desire it. That it's critical that you define a product that will cut through the clutter and encourage customers to seek it out now, and start using it. If a customer doesn't love your product, there's a high probability that even though they can use it, they might not buy it, or they won't come back and use it again. They're less likely to talk to their friends about it. This may seem like a subtle difference from a MVP, but it has direct bearing on whether your product is really viable. An example from the Indian FMCG, fast-moving consumer good industry, of a MLP is the Paper Boat brand from Hector Beverages. They didn't realize it, but when Paper Boat launched its MVP, it turned out to be an MLP. They had a small line of Indian drinks competing against the popular and incumbent large lines of soft drinks and juices such as Coca-Cola and Pepsi. However, a group of customers absolutely loved their product. They did that by developing a beautiful packaging laced with stories of the childhood of its millennial customers. The aspect of their product was not the core MVP framework. Do customers like the taste? But in the packaging and specialized tastes that struck an emotional chord with customers with their nostalgic juice flavors. Another example from the internet industry in China is the Alibaba B2C product, Taobao. They were fighting eBay and their entry into China. At the time, Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, put together a team of 6 people to create a basic e-commerce website in a few weeks. In building out this test product, Jack Ma had the unique insight into the behavior of Chinese people. They needed to build trust and relationship before they could buy anything. Bargaining was also an important element of that process. Therefore, breaking some cardinal rules of commerce, Taobao tried out a product that allowed buyers and sellers to exchange information through online chat. They built a very simple, minimal, viable product that was actually a minimal, lovable product. It also had a payment escrow system powered by Alipay that would release payments to sellers only when buyers confirmed that they had received the product. Another small feature that had huge impact. Customers reacted to the subtle aspects of that product that met their Sino-focused expectations and culture. They loved it. Taobao's MLP was a hit, and in 2 years, Taobao was the undisputed market leader in China, ahead of eBay. In summary, an MVP gets feedback, validates assumptions, and fixes problems, where an MLP goes one key step farther. It looks at customers' experiences and what would make them fun, usable, and lovable. An MLP is about searching for that deep insight about your customers' desires and aspirations that will make them want your product more than anything else. It's about getting a little taste of every aspect of what makes your product unique and desirable. Your MLP is a small cross-section of the whole experience you want to provide. Once you get feedback, you keep building iterations, ensuring that your product has that functional reliability, usability, and emotional design desired by their customer in each iteration.